I'm gonna run and grab a glass of water. You got that.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we are live on YouTube.
All righty, we're ready to go. I'll call this meeting of the Cheshire Inland Wetlands and Watercourses meeting to order at 7:35. We can say the Pledge of Allegiance on our own. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Dunn, would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Earl Kurtz,
Here.
Dr. Charles Dimick,
Present.
David Brzezowski, Tim Graver,
Here.
Bill McPhee,
Here.
and Tom Norback.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. And the business of the public hearing tonight is a continuation on the application of Tracy Romanek on South Meriden Road. And we've extended this hearing to give us a chance to look at the property and have comments and perhaps question the applicant about what we may have seen. Is Darren here by any chance?
Just, excuse me, just, Mr. Chairman, if Carrie could read the legal notice into the record.
Oh, I'm
For
sorry.
the call of the
Yes.
public hearing.
I would
Thank
just
you.
assume not, but I will do it. The Cheshire Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission will hold a virtual public hearing on April 6, 2021 via video teleconference at 7:30 p.m. for executive order of the Governor of Connecticut. Public access made available through live streaming on YouTube at https://www.youtube.com channel UC4 XEYQIJMWE 57R 6K94DW. Public comments can be submitted to comments@CheshireConnecticut.org and by voicemail message at 203-271-6638. Video will be available on Channel 14 and on demand at www.CheshireCT.org as soon as possible. The continuation of the public hearing for the permit application of Tracy Romanek, South Meriden Road, Cheshire, Connecticut 06410 for a site plan properly located on South Meriden Road, Cheshire, Connecticut 06410, as generally shown on Assessor's Map number 59, lot number 3 in an R-40 zone. Packet information is available for review on the town website homepage under, quote, documents distributed or displayed during virtual meetings, quote.
Thank you. Is there anyone here representing the applicant?
Hello, everyone. Darren Overton,
Oh, hi.
SLR Consulting. How's everybody doing tonight?
Well, thank you.
Good.
Also with me is the applicant, Tracy Romanek, who, as I learned recently, is recently married. That's why her name is coming up as Nowakowski.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
So how'd we do on the field walk? Everything look beautiful out there?
Gorgeous, beautiful spring weather.
Yeah, it is a nice time to go out there for sure, before everything is grown out too.
Do we have any comments or questions? Not, we've had the opportunity to have a closer look at the property.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Dimick did supply a written observation of his visit out there. If you'd like me to share it so the rest of the commission can see the comments.
Please.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Whoops.
wanted to point out this was written down more or less in the observations in the order that I saw them. So if they might not be quite in the literal format you might want, they are essentially transcribed from my notes in the field.
So Mr. Dimick, would you, or Dr. Dimick, would you like to read through it?
Certainly.
Or shall I? Okay.
It's a solitary site walk on March 25th between 1:30 and 2:10 p.m. for Lot 3 South Meriden Road. First observation was that although the side of the road is curved, the curbing is almost completely overgrown by grass, and some sediment is collecting in the roadway. Secondly, at a point just east of Test Pit 5, and I put not shown on map because the map I had did not yet have Test Pit 5 on it, water had recently jumped the curb and flowed westward. There was no water flowing when I was there, but you could see the pathway and the debris that had washed down. Third, perhaps not necessarily relevant, but I found the remains of a deer carcass and raccoon fecal droppings, giving an idea of some of the wildlife there. Fourth, I had my sharp shooter shovel with me and checked the wetland line, and it did appear to be accurate as far as I could tell. Fifth observation is multiflora rose is everywhere. It's dominant both within the upland buffer zone and to about 30 feet into the wetlands. Also, grapevine is very common. Sixth, I did not see any obligate wetland plants within 30 feet of the wetland boundary. Obligate wetland plants are ones that need wetland conditions to be able to grow. But there are a lot of facultative wetland plants, such as spice bush, silky dogwood, and cinnamon fern, which were very common within about 30 feet, both sides of the wetland line, both within the wetland and in the buffer zone. Seventh, about 30 to 35 feet downslope from the wetland boundary, obligate wetland plants such as skunk cabbage and tussock sedge appear. The tussock sedge growth shows signs of periodic submergence. In other words, there's indications that every once in a while the sedge was underwater. The overall quality of the wetland greatly improved from this point onward to the west. And my general conclusions were that the only major function of the wetland within 30 feet of the wetland boundary seems to be buffering of runoff and whatever's in it, plus catching of windblown trash from the adjacent uplands. But beyond that point, the wetlands are moderate to high quality. And as you go, they get much better. End of report.
Thank you, Dr. Dimick.
Thank you.
Oh, I did have a conclusion, a suggestion on that. Did you get down to that, Suzanne?
Let's see.
I had a couple of suggestions, in fact.
Sure.
One, removing the multiflora rose would be very disruptive since there's so much of it. However, selective cutting of it might be beneficial. And a further suggestion, if the development is to be approved, some sort of dense, non-invasive planting of at least 4 feet width should be made between the house and the wetland boundary. Native plantings are to be preserved, such as those which appear, and I have a web link of a native shrub list of about 80 or 90 native shrubs that could be used for planting in that area.
Is it okay to ask Dr. Dimick a question?
Please.
I don't understand the only major function of the wetland within 30 feet of the wetland boundary seems to be, are you talking about the east wetland? Or what
I'm
area?
talking about going from the wetland line into the wetland for about 30 feet. I didn't see anything that I would normally consider to be uh, a wetland characteristic that we normally try to preserve. There
Is
were
is that
no
what-
obligate wetland plants. There were no signs of wildlife that depended on the wetland, etc. After that, it got better very rapidly.
So would that be what Mr. Sanford was referring to as the eastern wetland versus the western wetland?
I suppose because as far as I can tell, that would be the wetland boundary is on the east of the wetlands. So, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Said it before and I'll say it again, Charles, you're one hell of an asset to this commission.
I'm glad you added the
Agreed.
set to that.
Thank you, Charles. Could you just go into a little more depth about the soil conditions? You're saying that the wetland was basically non-functional or however you worded it, I'm sorry, for those 35 feet, but the soils themselves did show the wetland characteristics. Is that correct?
Yeah, they would be in the category of what might be called somewhat poorly drained soils. They were at the time moist, at least all the way to the surface, but you had to go down about 18 inches to actually hit water there. And I'm not sure that that I saw the mottling that's characteristic of wetland soils. If I did, it was faint. But you know, it certainly the general characteristics were ones that back in the days when I did delimit wetlands, I would have called them wet at that point, wetland soils.
Okay. Thank you very much, Charles. It helps a lot.
I
Well, do
also
we have
did
any other
a,
questions of Charles or, oh, go ahead, Tim.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. Any questions for Charles? Okay. I also did a walkthrough of the area. I didn't submit a written report, Suzanne, but I can read it for the
Okay.
group right now. I was also there on March the 25th, although I did not see Charles. I was there later in the day. I walked south to north from the South Meriden Road all the way up to the Hickory Hill Orchard. And then I walked west to east from the corner back to the Meriden Road. And some of my observations, the water observations from the concrete slab that's shown on the map, I could see water formed at the base of that concrete slab. And on the 25th, it appeared that water was flowing out from the bottom. I did observe the creek flowing east to west through the wetlands, multiple pools and streams. The drainage swale at the south end of the wetlands at that time was a running stream. I did not observe any amphibious animals while I was there, although I saw multiple deer tracks at the wetland boundary. I also saw the animal feces containing the gray fur at the concrete slab and multiple locations of deer feces and buck rubs, all in the upland review area. Because it was soon after a rain event, I made a point to go back again as many days possible after rain had occurred. So I was there just yesterday on Monday. And in this case, I walked the boundary, the wetland boundary, and through the upland review area. Some of my the water observations, there were low wet areas in the upland review area by WA 10 and 11 as called out on the map. There was also a low wet area in the upland review area by WA 9 and 8 west of the test pit 1 and the proposed septic area, and a low wet area with standing water immediately west of WA 6. Now, again, I tried to schedule that second walk as late as I could past a rain event, but I did see those occurrences of water. I also saw the deer remains in the upland review area by WA 12, as mentioned by Charles. and many deer and a deer trail through the upland review area into the wetlands, crossing between WA6 and WA7 as shown on the map. So that would be basically straight through where the proposed location of the house is located. I didn't see animals, just remains and signs of animals when I was there. And again, no amphibious animals were observed.
All right.
Thank you.
Very much, Tim. That was detailed. And I'd like to put up on the screen members' backgrounds just to make it part of the official record for the public hearing. And Tim, I haven't had the opportunity to speak with you about your background. So when I put this up on the screen, if you could just sort of fill in the gaps of the information that you have to bring to the commission.
Okay.
We have members that have served, well, Dr. Dimick has, Dr. Dimick has served the longest. But if you could just sort of add to what your background is, that would be helpful.
Okay. My education is in chemical engineering, and I presently work as an engineer.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that this gets put as part of the record, since commission members are sharing their experiences, that now their time served on the commission and their backgrounds are now part of the record.
Okay.
Tim, did you have any conclusions based on your findings and what you noticed in your walk?
Yeah, I didn't note it in the report, but very similar to what Charles described, the amount of trash that's collected along the area immediate adjacent to the road. Certainly, yeah, walking, especially east to west back through the wetlands, it is very dense with the multifloral rose. Some locations were completely impassable. I didn't have a clear conclusion, doing that walk, where that boundary from the higher or the lower quality wetlands into the higher quality. It seems to be more of a transition than an identified location. Certainly when I was there, the areas that I walked through, there was a good bit of water in the soil, and some places were very difficult to walk through, and I had to avoid. But no, other than that, I didn't have any other conclusions.
Well, thank you.
And Tim and Charles, were the pink and yellow, the pink and blue flags, those were the wetland flags, correct?
They're the ones that had a W written on them, W1 through W11, I think it was.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember what color they were. I'm remembering blue, but might not have been right.
Yes.
They were blue and white.
Pink and blue together, and then there were orange. So it looked to me like the orange were the upland review, and the pink and the.
I thought the orange might have been survey markers of some sort. I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure. I did go there, but I wasn't sure of the meaning of the colors.
Darren says the orange was survey markers.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So anybody else get a look at it?
You know what? I missed the last meeting, unfortunately, and I would have loved to take a site walk, and I missed the memo on that one. I apologize. I really would have been, well, no sense in crying over spilled milk, but I really would have liked to take a site walk, but apparently I missed that opportunity.
You had 2 thorough reports on it, so.
I don't have a report. I did go today. I don't have the technical expertise of Tim and Charles, but I see what you saw. One question I had was, it looked like some trees had been cut down or things had been pulled out near the road. That was, I don't know if work's been done there.
Yeah, well, along the road right of way, I saw also there had been some cutting, but that could be for sight lines, it'd be for a number of other things.
They had a lot of storm damage over there. I have a
Yeah.
friend in the neighborhood.
That's
and
what
they
I
had some storm
assumed it
damage.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can speak to that quickly. That was the state that came by and they said that they needed to cut down trees because of the power lines. So
Okay.
that was the state
Yeah.
since it's the South Meriden Road.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
that seemed to be within the right of way of the property rather than being the private property.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did observe that. I also observed some trees that were cut further back in the wetland area. Some of them were along the property line with the Hickory Hill, and some were back further into the wetlands. I couldn't tell how long ago they had been cut. It hasn't been recent, though.
No.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions or comments regarding this? Pertinent to the public hearing?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just checked for public comments and there are no public comments that came through.
Okay. We've asked our questions. The public has nothing to say. Any commissioners have any comments? Or should we pursue it at our regular meeting?
Well, does Mr. Overton have anything else he wants to add or?
Yes, I'd just like to mention for the record that we did Chesapeake approval today. The additional test pits were done. We made some minor modifications to the leaching field to address those, and Chesapeake has approved the plan. We did submit that revised plan today for the commission's consideration. And I just want to say, I greatly appreciate the commission's efforts in doing the field walk and their careful consideration of this. I know this is not a simple application, but when what I heard tonight was some additional detail relative to the existing conditions on site, but I didn't hear anything inconsistent with our soil scientist, Matt Sanford's observations on this. So it appears that we're all on the same page with this. And I want to say that we made efforts in working with the future owner to minimize impacts as much as possible. There is obviously a limited upland review area here. The 3-bedroom house, we believe, has a reasonably compact footprint. They have an elevated deck to have some outdoor space, recognizing that, you know, the yard area that they have is limited and that there are limitations that will be marked to avoid disturbance to the wetlands. And certainly I agree with Dr. Dimick. I would encourage the future owner, if this plan is approved and the house is built, to do some invasive species management, particularly along the edge of the wetland and even into the wetland. And certainly town staff or others could provide guidance on that. I like Dr. Dimick's suggestion about some plantings along the buffer. I would even recommend, I don't know if the owner likes blueberries, but high bush blueberry will grow great along the edge of a wetland. And if you, I personally, I have some spots around the area where I live that I go and pick in the spring when the blueberries are available. And even a spot out on Martha's Vineyard where we go on vacation that we catch them right at the end of the season. So that's about all I have to add. The important addition is the fact that we do have the Chesapeake approval at this point, and I believe the recent testing that was done, which included perk tests, is done at pretty much the worst time of the year to run perk tests. The health code says that the perk test shouldn't be influenced by groundwater conditions, and the perk tests were run at essentially with saturated soils. So I believe because of that, we have tested during the worst case conditions, and that the design is conservative and will function appropriately for the long term. So that's all I have to add.
Thank you. There are no further comments. Anyone want to say anything? If not, we can close this public hearing at 7:58 and close the hearing altogether and begin our regular meeting. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Charles and Tim, for your research and sharing your findings. And we'll take this up at the regular meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time tonight.
Darren?
Okay, we'll call the regular meeting of the Cheshire Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission to order at 7:59. We've already pledged our allegiance. We've already called the roll and nobody's left. So we have a quorum. And we have the minutes of the last public hearing and the regular meeting to consider. Is there a motion?
I'll move the minutes as amended by Dr. Dimick for both the public hearing and the regular meeting.
Moved by Mr. McPhee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, was that Dr. Dimick? I didn't really.
Yes, I think it is.
Oh, thank you. Okay, no discussion, any discussion? All in favor of approving both sets of minutes, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Approved unanimously by those commission members present. Communications.
First communication is a
Yeah.
request for determination from All Points Technology for Fieldstone Court. This is on the agenda tonight under new business. And second is an application to the State of Connecticut Siting Council for a cell tower to be installed at 185 Academy Road. And what I provided to the commission is just the pertinent information having to do with the location of the proposed cell tower relative to the field located inland wetlands, which are outside of the 50-foot upland review area, as well as they indicate that no clearing will need to be conducted within that buffer area for the installation of the cell tower. So the purpose of them sending this notification is if the commission had any questions or concerns that they could, the commission could reach out to the siting council.
All right, are there any inspection reports?
No written inspections. A staff inspection of a complaint on Old Lane Road. It is not immediately discernible if there is a wetlands violation on the property, so I will reach out to the property owner, as well as a staff inspection of Yalesville Road. The silt fence is installed and he's beginning to gather all of the supplies needed for the corrective order for the restoration planting. Just additionally, while the sites have not yet been inspected, just to keep the commission in the loop, the most recent subdivision approval for Academy Road, that is moving forward and they anticipate getting their erosion controls in quite soon, as well as FIP on West Johnson. They seem to be wrapping up and they will be putting the permanent markers up around the wetland buffer area within the next couple of weeks. So that's on the horizon. So that is it for inspections.
Thank you. And under enforcement actions, you've given us information regarding Mr. Alvarenga on 720 Yalesville Road. So
Yes.
things are happening, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and the other one on Talmadge Road, Mr. Krasnicki.
Yes, I had a phone number for that, for the son of the property owner. I left a message and I have not heard back, so I will reach out again. And for the next meeting, I'll have hopefully information for the commission, but I do see that the fence has been removed.
Who is it they've got that's helping them with this?
Their son,
Okay. And you haven't been able to reach him either?
well, I left him a voicemail message and I haven't heard back from him.
And had they hired a consultant on this?
They did hire Ryan McAvoy previously, yes.
And have you contacted him to find out if anything's happening?
No, I haven't, but I can.
I kind of feel like a dermatologist in cases like this. The patient never dies and they never get well.
All right. Okay, we'll go to unfinished business. Permit application of on South Meriden Road by the Romanek family. We concluded the public hearing and we had some enlightening information all the way through. Do we want to talk about it so we know what to ask Suzanne to do for us?
You know, in the past, there have been times like this when we've, I might be jumping the gun in our discussion, where we've asked staff to prepare two motions, one as a permit and one as a denial, so that we can consider them both. I'm still on the fence of this. As I said the last time, I'm feeling less opposed to it than I was, but I'm still sitting a little bit on the fence. I can visualize this going forward with the proper safeguards and not feel too bad about it. I can visualize it being denied, and not to feel too bad about it also. So my own opinion.
Charles, I have a question, and I'm similarly minded. If we were to go forward with this, I'm thinking historically on lots that were pretty tough, and I think this one could certainly qualify as pretty tough. Like what comes to mind is the Cornwall Avenue lot of last year.
You're looking like about a year and a half follow-up afterwards to make sure.
Well, that and maybe a third party involved, making sure everything is done correctly if we were to move forward. I'm not saying that would be get out of jail free card.
No.
Just saying that they would do that, but I'm just thinking that maybe it would pay to have a third party overseeing it, because this is tricky, and if it goes sour, it's going to go sour fast. It seems like you can't let something like this get out of hand when we're like this. So I don't know if that's something that should be considered among the discussions or among the stipulations. I don't know, but I know historically we've done that on tricky lots, especially when they're this close to the wetlands.
I can't disagree with you. I think there's merit in what you say.
And I do commend the engineer's work, because it's like I think you said, I'm paraphrasing, but it's far better than it was, but it ain't great.
Yeah.
So that's my position.
Like both Charles and Tom, I'm really on the fence and was leaning towards denial, for the reasons being that I'm not so much concerned by, I'm sorry, Mrs. Romanek, I don't remember her new married name, and the engineer on it. I'm concerned about 2 or 3 owners down the road, like we had in Cheshire Street, and where when we have gone so close to these wetland boundaries, and there's so much temptation to just grow a backyard in a house that has no backyard, because the wetlands are so close. For perhaps a new owner down the line, and who would perhaps ignore those, markers and what have you. I just see this as a problematic site that could be coming back to us in years to come. So, although Charles's report tonight did help me, with the functionality of that 30 to 35 feet, as far as feeling, better about it. Again, I'm on the fence with that too. So I'm kind of leaning towards what Charles said, as far as having perhaps two draft motions here. I do like Tom as far as the accountability goes, of having a third party, or just having the engineer sign off on it weekly, versus so that it's not just a construction group or the homeowner doing it, so that there's some more accountability. But just based on the presentation of what they've done so far, I feel that they're doing their best with a very bad lot, but it's I don't know that it's frankly going to be good enough to appease all the concerns of this committee.
Well, to that point, we've had a fair number of lots that we have had problems with long after construction.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true. And actually, that is one of the things that I've found frustrating as a commission member, is that a few months after we're done with our work, it seems like there's really nobody keeping an eye on things. And then when they go sour fast. A couple of years and it goes to hell. And then every once in a while we stumble on one because somebody goes for a permit or a neighbor complains and we find it. But other than that, we have no I can't think of the word, oversight after the fact.
Correct.
So, but again, that's unfortunately, that's the way our laws and rules and are set up. So we don't have that, but that I guess is a cautionary tale.
May I ask a question of Carrie? Carrie,
Yeah, I hear you.
I know that your background is not in land use law, but you've been to a couple of these workshops. If we had a direct wetland impact, we would have more say-so in terms of making a denial and not having an appeal against it. In this particular case, we can't show any direct wetland impact. We can infer various indirect wetland impacts with the buffer zone. But in court, as I understand it, you'd have to show more probable than not impact to be able to carry anything like that. What's your opinion?
No, I agree with you. I mean, we can review activities in the upland review areas to determine and regulate adverse impacts on the wetlands. But we have to show that something that's happening in the upland review area is going to impact on the wetlands. And your report tonight made me think a little bit differently about this, because I was coming in a little more negative than I'm coming out after hearing your report and your findings. But as far as looking at this, denying it because maybe down the road something could happen, that's speculations. That's really, I don't think that would be the standard that we would need to meet. So, and this is tricky. This is a tricky case because what they're talking about is that the one wetland is of low value and will act as a buffer for the other. And I haven't been able to find any case like that. I literally was on the computer most of today looking for that. But, you know, from what you're saying in your review, maybe you're a little more in agreement with what Mr. Sanford was saying. Because I look at you as an expert. I mean, he's an expert, you're an expert. I mean, we all have our own expertise, but.
Yeah, and I've certainly testified as an expert witness when someone on the other side was also an expert witness. We're equally balanced. So you can come down, two experts can look at something and not come out with exactly the same opinion.
Right. So, I mean, you can regulate the use of the uplands if evidence of impact on the wetlands or watercourses, and the finding must be supported by substantial evidence. So what would our substantial evidence be? What are we looking at? I mean, some of it is like you all were talking about the last meeting, common sense, right? I mean, you're by a very busy roadway. It's a sloping area. I mean, there are some common sense things. We did see evidence of animals, all of us, when we went there.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to find that dead deer as a result of having been hit by a car and getting that far and dropping dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got to be substantial evidence.
So, Carrie, thank you for that, because I think that's very pertinent to our conversation here. And that, you know, obviously, if we go in for denial, it sounds like we could be liable in a or you know, found wrong in the fact that for our denial, because there's nothing, in my opinion, that's grossly evident that's going to cause in the upland review area that's going to cause damage to the wetlands from what we see. But I mean, I could be wrong. So perhaps then oversight is the way to go, just to make sure that we know that if this were approved, we have as much oversight as possible on it to ensure that it's done to the letter of the law, or everybody's crossing their T's and dotting their I's.
And with an eye toward the future, to discourage what your concerns are. I think we need to have a robust discouragement, whether it's with, you know, in the stipulations or a split rail fence or you know, a no man's land with barbed wire and machine guns. I don't know, but you get it, you know, they just can't go back there.
But playing devil's advocate, on the other side, our chairman asked a great question about what are you doing? You're taking one wetland and you're using it as an upland review. And instead you're replacing one wetland as an upland review and you're using that as a buffer. And you asked him at the end of the first hearing to please present evidence in the next hearing about would there be impact to the one wetland, the less value wetland. And Tim made a really good point when he asked question about, well, can't the value of that lower value wetland increase? And he agreed that it could. So we can look at what we have on the record and decide that there wasn't enough presented to answer your concerns about that. I mean, I think I'm on the fence too.
Well, I think it's all in the doing. If we decide to do something, I think, as Will and Tom have mentioned, the oversight is very important and we have to adhere to that. And we really can't help or plan for the future. So what's going to happen if somebody violates the spirit or the letter of the law regarding the wetlands protection in this area? We have to take action, and we're in the same boat we'd always be in. All we can do is, for the immediate time, make the best decision we can based on the information we've gathered and our own knowledge, which, just listening, which is what I always do anyway, this commission has a lot of understanding and a lot of expertise right here. And if it ever did go to court, that would be very much considered in any judge's decision. If we're going to approve it, my only question would be, do we ask the current engineering firm to also be the watchdog, or would we be asking to serve two masters and they'd have to make a choice? I'm up in the air about that, but I think whatever we do, we have to concern ourselves with the present and make the best decision we can to make sure everything is done properly, whether it's closed down or the house is built, and then see what happens in the future. But I am curious as to whether we could insist that somebody from Milona McBroom be there all the time when the foundation is being dug and the framing is being done. That's the most critical time as far as any wetlands violations would be concerned. Or should we ask someone else? And we also talked early on about putting the split rail fence and the barriers in place before any work was done. That way it would deter anyone going into the wetlands for any reason. So between that and having somebody there, we could at least ensure that the intent is carried out in the actual construction.
Yeah,
I think that would be, if we do go ahead, I think that's prudent. I really think, like we asked on Cornell Avenue, I think we need to have split rail fence, orange fence, and we just really need to have a well-defined area to protect it.
Yeah, I would agree with that comment, especially during the construction sequence that they presented at one of the previous meetings. The corner of the house right by the Iwwc as shown on the map, that just to the west of that spot with the wetland boundary is where I found low wet areas. So they're going to be building, I'm looking at the map, it looks to be about 8 or 10 feet from the wetlands boundary. So they'll be in there with machinery, they'll be digging, excavating, doing site work, site preparation within a very close distance to the wetlands. And without those additional precautions like we described it would be very easy for a construction equipment to go into the wetlands. And yeah, I agree with those comments that they're really threading the needle as I see it with that construction sequence and the precautions to be put in place. Everything would have to be run perfectly in order to preserve or not impact the wetlands.
I would,
Just from me looking at it. Yep, go ahead.
normally we have staff meet for a pre-construction meeting before construction actually starts. In this case, I'd love to have staff plus Tom there to have a pre-construction meeting, because Tom knows the limitations of what can or cannot be done. And he might be the one that says whether or not what staff wants is a reasonable sort of a thing. I don't know if he wants to get involved.
I'd be happy to do that. In for a penny, in for a pound, Charles.
Well, you know, each of us has our own background and expertise. And I wouldn't begin to suggest how you put in a foundation, for instance. I can help you build the septic, but not the rest of it.
All right, well, however we can best stipulate these considerations, I think would be prudent. Suzanne, do you think you could
Yes.
find a way?
Yep, there's enough here, enough information that's been shared tonight that that I know what to do for the next meeting.
Do you
All
still
right.
think you want to draft 2 motions?
Yes.
Okay, everybody's in agreement on that issue, and you expressed all the information you want to, so that Suzanne knows what to consider when she writes these motions.
Will
This
the
is a
firm
difficult.
that we're gonna have overseeing it, will we need their that need to know their willingness to participate prior to
Well, the stipulations that the commission has put forward previously, they identify that it's to be a licensed
Okay.
engineer. It does not specify the firm, and I believe that that would be difficult for the commission to do.
I
to
know, we
specify-
visited this before, you're right.
Yeah.
Right, so just to say a licensed professional engineer would be enough.
All right, very good.
Okay. Everybody happy? Everybody had their say?
I'm not happy, but I've had my say.
I'll be happy when it's over.
Oh, yes. Well, that's why they pay us big bucks to be on this commission.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
Man.
Gee, Tom, I think you just had a job offer. If you're gonna be on the site for the pre-construction, you can maybe charge for your services.
Yeah,
Okay.
take a shot.
Anyway, we can leave this. We'll revisit it at the next meeting.
Yes.
On to new business. Request for determination on Fieldstone Court. Is there somebody who wants to speak to us about this?
Yep, my name is Kyle Perry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. I work for Verigy, a solar company based out of Hartford. We're working with Lane Construction at 90 Fieldstone Court for the installation of a ground mount and carport array. And I have here with me the All Points Kevin McCaffrey on the phone as well, who submitted this request for determination. And he can go a little bit into the plans that were drawn up here. As far as the wetlands go, I know just a little background. We had gone to submit for site plan review with the Planning and Zoning Department, and then they asked for a request for determination to the Wetlands Commission here tonight. So that's why we're here. We are outside of the buffer area, or the upland review area, excuse me. But I'll let Kevin take it from here.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so as Kyle said, there's sort of 2 portions to the project. There's a carport system that's being proposed east of the building, over the existing parking. And then there's a small ground mount area north of the parking area, which is the one that's, I think, the subject of your review, because that's closer to the wetland. Our staff went out there earlier this year. That figure right there might be a good one to start with, Suzanne. Yeah, so they were out there earlier this year, and those two areas marked as wetland 1. The southern area is basically a detention basin that's got a culvert inlet coming off the parking lot, and then an outlet control structure that controls the water levels. And then that flows to the north, and there's a forested seep up in that second hatched area noted as wetland 1. The brown crosshatched area down to the southwest is a dry detention basin. That was reviewed during the field work and not classified as wetland. So the plan is to put roughly about a half-acre system in that grass area north of the parking area. And when I say half acre, that's the area that's enclosed by the chain link fence. And at its closest point, we're just under 60 feet from the north portion of wetland 1. We cited it to be outside of the 50-foot line. And plan is to preserve as much of that existing vegetation as we can during construction and installation of the solar field. The site will be encircled by erosion control, silt fence, which will all go in before any work is done. The plan to access it will be, okay, yeah, so that we've got north looking to the right now. So the access point will be down by the tractor display, which is right there. So we'll put a construction entrance tracking pad there off the existing asphalt and pull that out after construction. And the other erosion control measure would be to install catch basin inserts. There is a drain line that runs along that north edge of that parking that ends up going into the detention basin. So we'll put silt socks in those before we do any work. So, and then anything that, any of that existing vegetation that gets, gets thinned out or I don't expect too much rutting because the system is pretty small, but anything that needs to be repaired there will be seeded and mulched before the erosion controls are pulled out at the end of the project. So I've kind of focused on this ground mounted area because that's the one in close proximity to the wetland. But we should just mention that there will be a carport system installed east of the building. If you want to just scroll down a little bit further, you can see that.
First of all, I'm having a little difficulty understanding you in that you're saying there's going to be no effect to the wetlands or the upland review area in your construction project?
That's our proposal. This is basically
okay.
Act.
And what about the drainage off the roof? I assume it's going to have a roof, right?
This piece here, the ground mounted area, those are arrays that are installed on pilings in the ground. So the surface underneath those will all remain vegetated. So from a stormwater perspective, there's no change in runoff numbers.
Oh, it's not going to be a roof then?
No, not this area near the wetland.
Okay, well, I heard carport, I just assumed roof.
Yeah, so that's the other piece of the project, and that's over east of the building, where we are going to do what you could consider a roof type structure, a carport, but that's all over existing pavement already. So again, we don't see any change in runoff expected from that piece of the project either.
Mr. Chairman, I did walk this property with the map in hand and looked at the situation there, and I didn't make any actual measurements, but It did seem to be a significant difference between, distance between where they're proposing the solar panels and actually getting into that more northerly wetland. I first visited that more northerly wetland back in 1972, by the way. I used to live in that area. I did not see anything that looked like a problem to me.
Okay,
Just for the record, I'm sorry, I don't know who's presenting this because your screen isn't up on my screen, but so what you're saying is that no trees will be cut within this 50-foot upland review area? Is that correct?
That's right. There's no clearing plan for that area. Right where your cursor is, there's a couple of single trees right along the pavement. Yeah.
This area?
That are
Okay.
well out, so, those are over 100 feet at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, what I got is no problem.
there's nothing being presented that would create an issue that I can see.
No,
I agree.
and under the circumstances, I move the commission declare that no permit will be required for the proposed construction. No wetlands permit will be required for the proposed construction.
Moved by Dr. Dimick, is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Seconded, I didn't hear who it was, I couldn't
That was
recognize.
Tom.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Seconded by Tom Norback. Is there any discussion further? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried unanimously by those commission members present, I'm sorry. It's declared that the project would create no problem and we have no need for an application. Okay, I'm told that the next item is just a matter of receiving
Thank you very much, guys.
the
Thank
application.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, items number 2 and 3 on the agenda are just to acknowledge that the applications have been received. And so we did receive an application for 648 Wallingford Road with a date of receipt of today, April 6th, as well as receiving an application for Highland Avenue, again with the date of receipt of April 6th. And both of these will be on the agenda for the next meeting with their representatives on board to provide a presentation.
Can you tell me where on Highland Avenue?
It is across from Stop and Shop, but all the information will be sent out to commission members. You'll see the application as well as the site plan. So you'll have all that detail in preparation for the next meeting.
That's where we went in for an emergency culvert repair back around 10 years ago.
That is off of Route 10. That's it, East Mitchell.
East Mitchell, okay, is that there?
Yes,
I thought there was something.
but good memory, very good memory, of course. And that
All right, so
is it.
this requires no activity on our part.
No, no action tonight.
Is there any further new business to come before the commission?
No.
I have a point. Tom, could you straighten that picture behind you, please?
Two.
How's that?
Much better.
Good thing.
All right, gang.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Will.
Okay.